welcome to today's episode of Hankie Pankie. Today we're going to show you how to dry and iron hankies. In one of our previous episodes we showed you how to wash hankies, and today I'm going to show you a little bit about how they're pressed. We start out with some of the hankies that we have dried, and we run through the spin cycle in our washing machine. And what we want to do is just to take the extra water out. We do not wring them tight by hand. We just make sure that they feel slightly damp, and you have to hang them to dry. I just slightly overlap each and every hanky that we have. I try to do them sometimes in a color scheme, so I'm doing them all together. Today's hankies that I'm washing were all crocheted or tatted hankies. And basically what you'd like to do with them is to make sure that you only dry them. It usually only takes about 10 minutes because you want to iron them slightly damp. So give them about 10 minutes on the rack. I air dry them. Do not put them near heat anywhere where they'll dry too quickly, because you want to start drying them damp. And you want to start ironing them when they're damp, so it only takes a few minutes for them to dry. So we're going to give these about 10 minutes, and then I will be back to show you just exactly how they're ironed. Well, welcome back. It's been about 10 minutes and we've allowed the hankies to dry. They are still very damp to touch, but that's exactly how you want them. If you allow them to get too dry, you're going to have to rinse them again and dry them all over, just so that you get a nice iron. Now, a lot of people ask me if I starch my hankies, which I do not. I make sure that I have my iron, depending on what the fabric is, but most of the time on a cotton or a linen fabric, I have it on cotton linen setting, which is the highest it'll go. I do use steam setting. I lay the hanky out as flat as I can get it onto my ironing board. And I just slowly press. Now, like I told you before, that these hankies that we're pressing today are all tatted or crocheted. So I also do press out the crochet because you want that to sit nicely. Now, on most of the hankies that I press, I am pressing them so that I can photograph them to sell. So I do want them very flat. So I have a piece of, just a piece of craft board that I keep on my ironing board, and then after I have ironed the hanky, I put it on the craft board to keep it flat. Sometimes some of the hankies that I sell, there's another very pretty one. Look at the embroidery work on that. Isn't that pretty? And this hanky, before I washed it, was very dirty. It was covered in stains, but it's been soaking for about 3 days, and it took absolutely everything out. But we do the same thing. That's very detailed hand lace work, so I make sure it's all pressed out. I press it exactly the same way. But in this one, I'm going to fold it a little bit, because sometimes I do a little bit of decorative folding, especially when I lot a couple of the same color together. I'll do them completely pressed. So I'm going to iron it completely flat, like we did the previous one. I'm going to fold it in half, completely in half, and then I will fold it again, press that down so that I have a square just like that. So what I'm going to do with it now is I'm going to fold the first corner down Still see a little bit of the stain there, but fold the first corner down. Looks like a square. I'm going to fold it down again. Just so it slightly overlaps. Fold it again. Same way. Slightly overlaps. The third one. And one more time. And there we go. Look how pretty that is. That would work out well if you'd like to give a hanky as a gift. There are very many different ways that you can iron them. You can get creative with it. Let's try. Let's see. This one will be a little bit different. This one here has a little doll that is sewn to the corner. But you're just going to be very careful when you're ironing that. You do it the same way. Make sure it's completely flat. But there's a lot of very detailed lace work on that. If you can see that. So you're going to iron it in the same way. But if you are going to fold this, you would only fold it. You want to be able to see the doll. See how nice they iron when they're damp? If you allow them, if you're going to be busy and it gets a little bit too dry, then you're best just to put it aside till you have the time to iron them. That's why it's good not to do, I tend to do, usually, I can't handle more than about 20-25 hankies at one clip because they tend to dry too quickly. Alright, look how pretty that doll is. You can still see some of the dampness, which is exactly what you want. But if you see this, no starch, and absolutely beautiful. It feels like you've treated the fabric, but you haven't. Now these you just have to watch if you're doing a fold, because you do not want to cover the doll. There are some pretty flat boxes that you can get at any craft store. They're pre-made boxes that you could put a hanky in that, like that. Look how pretty that is. Well, that's how you iron hankies. I hope that you learned a little bit today. It is a little bit tedious work, but the effort that you put into it is well worth it. And if you are doing this as a gift or just as a business, you know, you'll appreciate the time that people put into this. That's why, as we've spoken before, I've told you when you buy hankies that are already pre-washed and pre-ironed, you're going to spend a little bit more money on them just because the work that's involved with washing them and pressing them. Well, thanks for watching today, and I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for joining us today at Hankie Pankie Vintage Linens. If you have any questions about what we've talked about today, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. If you've seen any hankies or linens that you like in today's video, they may still be available. Please visit my eBay store. A link to that and my contact information is in the video description.